So I just saw Kung Fu Panda 4, and as I predicted many months ago, this movie was very mid and I did not like it. It is just a shame that this franchise has gone the direction that it did. I thought Kung Fu Panda 1 and Kung Fu Panda 2 were really good. They had such a mature story to tell, and yet kids could still watch them. When it came to the third movie, I didn't really like it as far as the first two, but I didn't think it was that offensive. There was just a few things here and there that didn't really make me like it as much as the first two, but it was still enjoyable nonetheless. Kung Fu Panda 4, on the other hand, is just the worst out of the 4 movies, unfortunately. This honestly feels like a side story that could have just been told, but instead it's made into a feature film that you have to pay money and watch. Before this movie came out, there was a post made that the 4th Kung Fu Panda movie would involve all 3 major villains from the first 3 movies. And when I heard that news, I thought that is the stupidest thing ever, because why do you need to revive these characters? They had stories and they ended. What is the point of bringing them back? If a story has to bring back villains from the past, that is really bad. It just shows that you have no creativity and you have nothing left to tell except just rehashing old events. And trust me, this movie does a lot of rehashing, and I'll get into that. Basically, this takes place after Kung Fu Panda 3. Po has become a stronger warrior and he's, kicking ass here and there. But eventually he needs to become a spiritual leader and he can no longer be the dragon warrior. So Master Shifu tells Po that, hey, you need to get a new successor to become the next dragon warrior. Now, I bet you're already asking, what about the Furious 5? Can one of them become the next dragon warrior? Well, no. Apparently they can't for whatever reason. I guess you only get one chance to become the dragon warrior and that's really it. It doesn't even really matter because these characters aren't even in this movie. Early on in the movie, someone asks where the Furious 5 is, and Po explains how they're all doing their own side adventure, and I guess they were just too busy to be there for the 4th movie and story. So it doesn't matter. Po needs to find a new person to train to become the next Dragon Warrior because he needs to master Inner Peace. But wait, I thought Po already mastered Inner Peace in the 2nd movie. Wasn't that the entire point of that film? Well, he needs to master Inner Peace again, and more spiritual Inner Peace or something, because they don't really explain it. Po just needs to do it because Shifu says it. And you don't question Shifu. Po at first really doesn't want to do that. He'd rather still be the Dragon Warrior for a little bit longer because he likes his job, I guess. Sometime during the movie while Po was meditating, someone snuck into the Jade Palace and was trying to steal some artifacts. Po confronted this figure and it turns out to be a fox named Zen, I believe, played by Awkwafina, because Hollywood cannot get enough of her voice. So they fight and she puts up a pretty good fight against Po, which is kind of surprising considering Po is supposed to be one of the strongest fighters in the land at this point. But that doesn't matter. He eventually beats her and then she's taken off to prison. And as she was being taken to prison, a bunch of goats came to Po and said, hey, there's this guy who looks like Tai Lung and he's invading our village. And he said he wants the Dragon Warrior to bow down. So Po's like, oh, who is this figure? And then Shen is like, oh, that just so happens to be the shape-shifting chameleon. So Po sets out on an adventure to find information about this person, but he needs to bring Shen along because only she knows how to get to the chameleon's door. The chameleon's a girl, it doesn't matter. We got to see a scene of how powerful she is, how she can really shapeshift into anyone that she has control over and pretty much use them for their abilities as well. Before they get to the main city of where the chameleon is, Po stops at this little Happy Rabbit restaurant and there were some shenanigans that happens there and they pretty much move along. Also, the reason why I'm not talking too much about this movie is because this movie doesn't really give you a lot of time to take a break and relax. Throughout this entire movie, I could just tell their audience that they were aiming for was kids who were chronically on TikTok. This movie just could not sit down and let the viewer breathe for even a second. It was just constant, go here, go this, do this, go this has to be said. And another thing that was annoying about this movie, everyone had to explain every single thing even though it was already said and presented in the movie. It's almost as if, again, this movie was meant for children and or babies and they had to keep repeating it to the audience so kids know what's going on. My cat just meowed. Also, as Po's setting out on this adventure, his dads decide to also follow Po because they're worried about Po, which is kind of fucking stupid considering Po has already defeated so many stronger foes and some of the strongest enemies in the land in the Valley of Peace. But for whatever reason, because they heard it was a shape-shifting chameleon, I guess they heard rumors about this person, they just had to go and help Po out. Again, Po has defeated really strong opponents before in the past and their dads was just that worried about them. So then Poe eventually gets to the big city, and it's pretty much treated as like a New York modern style type of city where there's a lot of people there. There was a moment where Poe was running away from the guards of the city, but then Zen escapes into a tunnel, and then they eventually find a den of thieves where a bunch of people are hiding underground and living criminal lives. I tried to enjoy the characters that were underground, but I will go into them more specifically later. At this point, Poe's dads are eventually catching up on them. Eventually, Poe makes it to the tower where the chameleon is being held, and then he's ready to start the final battle and everything, but he gets ambushed, and Poe's like, oh, help me out. Here, use this stick to help prop open the cage that I'm under. And it turns out Shin was evil all along and working with the chameleon this entire time. And in my head, I really didn't expect that to happen, but I also did expect it to happen in a way. So it wasn't really that big of a shocker. It was like, oh wow, the whole "you lied to me" whole type of trope went into effect with this movie. So Poe like escapes and everything, and then he tries charging back in, but Zen was like, I realized I was a bad guy, and I realized the adventure we went on, Poe, was more meaningful to me than anything, and I want to be your friend, and I want to help you take down the chameleon. So eventually they team up, they take down the chameleon. But the chameleon is using the staff that Poe is holding, because Poe has a staff of time or something. I forgot what it was called. But Poe was carrying it throughout this entire adventure, pretty much since the start of the movie. And the staff was pretty much used to bring back characters from the spirit world, and eventually they brought back Tai Lung for real this time, and not just a shape-shifting form. It was the real Tai Lung. But also Kai and Lord Shin come back from the last two movies, and she eventually takes all these people who are in the spirit world, takes all their powers, absorbs them, takes their kung fu powers, and she's ready to take on the world and destroy everything, blah blah blah. It's not really that big of a plot. She's not really that good of a villain, by the way. So Poe has to stop her, and they have this really big fight that I thought was actually pretty good, but it really was the best part of the movie in my opinion. But of course Poe takes her down, blah blah blah, and all the villains was like, hey Poe, thanks for saving our lives and saving our kung fu. Now could you please send us back to the spirit world instead of giving our lives back so we could have a second chance at life. I didn't really expect Poe to let that happen, but it was just kind of funny in my opinion that Poe is doing all this just to send all the villains back to the spirit world. So yeah, that happens. The chameleon gets defeated. Tai Lung's like, hey, until we meet again, because they're like rivals now. And he takes the chameleon, and Poe's like, oh wow, Zen, you make a really good dragon warrior. And then she becomes the next dragon warrior, and then the movie just pretty much fucking ends right there. There's really not much else. I just am not interested in the story that was being told, because it was clearly not mature at all and not the type of story I was looking for when it came to this franchise. I really hope that they went back to the first two movies and seen that and was trying to replicate something similar to it, but they did not, unfortunately. Like I said, this movie is really made for kids and babies who have or needs to be constantly stimulated 24/7. Because yeah, the pacing of this movie was just non-stop and did not really give me a break to like absorb the movie and take it all in like the first two movies did. As far as the characters in this movie, there really is like two new characters. Poe is pretty much the same, Master Shifu is the same, the Furious Five is not even in this movie, Tai Lung has returned and he's pretty much still the same, but he's more of a chill dude now. Kai and Lord Shin are in the movie, but they don't say a single word, and maybe they did, but it was like one word. There was like 5 contestants that were training to become the Dragon Warrior that Poe had to select, but Poe didn't, and it was pretty funny how they didn't really add anything to the story, and Mr. Beast played one of them and he really only said one word, so that was pretty fucking pathetic of them to do. Why the hell would you have one of the biggest internet creators in the entire planet come just to say one fucking word for your multi-million-dollar movie? That's another thing. This movie's budget was like 100 million, or I guess less than that. I think, yeah, it was $85 million, which is shockingly low, which it's just weird also. This is also one of the shortest movies too. It came in as an hour and a half, which to me that just screams short. I don't know why. Hour and a half movies are just so last decade. I feel like movies should try to be a little bit longer than that, but that's just my personal opinion. Anyway, yeah, any other characters in this movie? There's the chameleon, of course, played by Viola Davis, and she's not really that great of a character because she's so generic and basic and not well designed or well fleshed out at all. She just wants to take everyone's kung fu power and take over the world and or rule everything. That's definitely not been done before, at least to somewhere like something in that area or to that degree. Zen is pretty much the second main character, if not the main character at the majority of the times, and like I said, she's played by Awkwafina, which I'm kind of getting really sick and tired of seeing her in these animated films. I really don't get what's the point, but she pretty much does the most average job ever. She pretty much voices herself in this entire movie. Nothing really stands out about this character. It's very generic and very cookie cutter, by the books, nothing special at all. The visuals was pretty good, but like I said earlier, the movie didn't really give me a chance to take in the animation and the world and like admire it. The whole world of Kung Fu Panda is really good, but we barely get a chance to just explore it or get to see it. Times that we did was abruptly ended, and I don't like that. The animation was pretty good. Poe's final fight with the chameleon was done really well, and I thought it was very quick and snappy. And there was also a police chase scene. Well, not really police, but they were guards of the city. Juniper City is what it was called, and I thought that was a really well designed city, but it really didn't give me a chance to really take it all in. In fact, I pretty much forgot about it. All I can really say, it's kind of like New York because there's just a lot of people and a lot of shops and markets and everything. There's also the underground area where all the thieves lives, and I thought that was pretty fine, but it's a pretty generic place. It's nothing special. The armadillo character in the sewers or the underground area was kind of funny at times, but not too funny. There was people in the audience that I went to who was laughing at a lot of the jokes that was made in this movie, and I really could not say the same or really laugh like that because this movie just was painfully unfunny for the majority of the time. The only time I thought it was funny is when I thought about Poe sending all these people back to the spirit world. But yeah, just not really funny. Pretty much the most unfunniest movie out of the four, so it's not really looking too good. Writing, I can't really say it was anything spectacular. It was very by the books, just an adventure guy needs to go on an adventure and choose an apprentice, and it happens to be the person that he's been traveling with this whole time. And throughout the movie, Poe and Zen gets to learn about each other, but it's really just so basic, and it doesn't go anything that deep, to be honest. It is just so mid. That's really all I could say about this movie. There really isn't much to say left about this movie. I could go into more specifics, but like, it just really isn't. This doesn't feel like a film. This just feels like a TV show that had 3 final episodes and they were all mashed together into a movie. I just really don't understand why Kung Fu Panda 4 has to be this bad. And to be honest, saying bad is kind of harsh. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's definitely mid, and that's why I'm giving this movie a 5 out of 10. There's just so many things that I did not like and thought was very underwhelming, and it is just a damn shame that the Kung Fu Panda franchise has just sunken this low. Like, DreamWorks, you've made so many great movies in the past, and it's to the point where now Pixar is doing better than you guys when you were doing better than Pixar, so what the hell is going on? Yeah, I really don't have anything else to say. 5 out of 10 for this movie. I really don't recommend watching it. It is not worth going to theaters and paying money to watch. If you really care about the story and adventure of Poe, then fine, go watch it, but don't expect anything spectacular. Also, at the very end, the Furious 5 came back from their adventures, and they reused a lot of animations from the first movie, more like reused. That's actually one thing I wanted to talk about before I ended this recording. A lot of this movie is just rehashed and reused bullshit. The plot is just them going to a new city to take down a very big bad villain, just like in the first or the second one. They rehash and reuse the villains from all the 3 movies. They rehash the whole Poe needs to have inner peace, and they rehash the whole, oh, Poe's dad's a worry about him. It just feels like this entire movie just feels like a plot for a TV show that they decided to re-up the animation and make it into a film. So yeah, very just so bad. No, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's just so mid. So mid. Like, DreamWorks, please do better. I saw a trailer for a movie called The Wild Robot, and that seems like it looks very interesting, and I really hope this is the movie that DreamWorks was truly working on with their real true talent. I really don't know which animators or which team decided to work on this Kung Fu Panda 4 movie, but if I had to guess, it was definitely their C team, because yeah, this was not their best, and this is the worst Kung Fu Panda that has ever been made, and DreamWorks, please do better. You made Puss in Boots the last wish, I believe it was called, but that Puss in Boots movie, like, how do you make that movie and then just stop? Why aren't you trying your hardest to be good? If you are trying your hardest, you need to fire everyone who's been making the decisions lately, because I have a lot to say about the Megamind 2 movie that you fucking made. But yeah, 5 out of 10, that's all I gotta say. See ya.